Something has been getting harder to hide. Something that has followed him for years. And behind one of Coronation Street's most recognizable faces lies a private struggle that few viewers truly understand. Because while Daniel Osbourne's life has been spiraling into chaos on screen, the man who plays him has been fighting a very different battle away from the cameras. A battle involving uncertainty, fear, change, and the worrying possibility that one day, everything could become impossible to conceal. But that's only part of the story. Because alongside that personal challenge comes heartbreak, lost relationships, unexpected endings, and fresh questions about what the future may hold. For years, Coronation Street fans have watched Daniel Osbourne navigate some of Weatherfield's most dramatic storylines. Accusations, manipulation, loss, betrayal, public humiliation, emotional breakdowns. The character has faced one crisis after another. And recently things have become darker than ever. His world has been turned upside down by shocking revelations, dangerous accusations and emotional turmoil. But while viewers focus on Daniel's struggles, many know surprisingly little about the actor bringing those scenes to life. Because Rob Mallard's Real story contains its own twists, its own challenges, and its own emotional chapters. And that's where the mystery begins. For a long time there was something Rob worried people might notice. Something he couldn't completely control. Something that became harder and harder to hide. At first it seemed manageable. Something that could be disguised. Something that could be worked around. Something viewers might never even notice. But over time the reality became impossible to ignore. Because Rob lives with a neurological condition known as essential tremor. A condition that causes involuntary shaking. A condition that affects millions of people. And a condition that has quietly shaped much of his life. Imagine carrying that burden as an actor. Imagine standing in front of cameras, performing emotional scenes, knowing that every movement could be scrutinized, every gesture observed, every tiny detail potentially noticed. That kind of pressure can be exhausting. And for years Rob attempted to navigate it privately. But one detail changes everything. Eventually he realized hiding it was becoming more difficult than speaking about it. The condition wasn't disappearing. It wasn't improving. If anything, it was becoming more noticeable, more persistent, more challenging. And that's when he made a decision many people would find incredibly difficult. He chose honesty. He chose openness. He chose to share the truth. For some people, revealing a personal struggle feels terrifying. Because once the truth is out there, it can't be taken back. Questions follow. Attention follows. Speculation follows. Yet Rob decided that raising awareness mattered more than maintaining silence. And that decision earned enormous respect from many fans. But the emotional reality behind that decision is impossible to ignore. Because essential tremor isn't simply something that exists in the background. It's progressive. Something that may become more challenging with time. Something that creates uncertainty about the future. And uncertainty can be one of the hardest things to live with. Nobody knows exactly what tomorrow will look like. Nobody knows exactly how circumstances will change. Nobody knows exactly what challenges may emerge. That uncertainty alone can be emotionally exhausting. And that's where another troubling question appears. What happens if the condition becomes impossible to hide on screen? It's a question Rob himself has acknowledged. One that creates a fascinating possibility. Could Daniel Osbourne eventually begin sharing aspects of Rob's real-life experience? Could fiction and reality become intertwined? Could viewers one day see elements of that struggle incorporated into the character? Right now nobody knows. But the possibility remains. And that's what makes the story so compelling. Because it isn't just about the present. It's about the future. A future filled with unknowns. A future still being written. However, another emotional chapter was unfolding at the same time. One involving love, relationships, and heartbreak. Because away from the cameras, Rob's personal life has often attracted attention. Particularly when romance entered the picture. And one relationship in particular captured enormous interest. Not because it was scandalous. Not because it was controversial. But because it connected two familiar Coronation Street faces. After joining the soap, Rob found happiness with fellow cast member Daniel Brocklebank. For fans it seemed like a perfect match. Two actors. One show. A shared understanding of the pressures that come with life in soapland. Everything appeared positive. Everything appeared promising. Then things changed. What happens next is something many couples can unfortunately understand. The challenge of balancing work and personal life. The challenge of maintaining boundaries. The challenge of protecting a relationship when professional pressures never truly disappear. Eventually, the relationship came to an end. Not with public drama. Not with explosive accusations. But with heartbreak nonetheless. Because even the most respectful separation carries emotional consequences. Dreams change. Plans disappear. And futures that once felt certain suddenly become unclear. But that's only the beginning. Because love would return again. And then once more. Each relationship bringing new hope. New possibilities. New beginnings. Yet not every beginning becomes a permanent ending. Another romance eventually faded. Another chapter closed. Another emotional adjustment followed. And while those experiences remained largely private, they formed part of the journey that shaped the person fans know today. Then came another significant moment. A relationship that appeared to offer stability. Happiness. A sense of lasting connection. When Rob publicly appeared alongside fellow actor Matthew Martin, many fans were delighted. The pair looked happy, comfortable, confident. And for years, everything seemed positive. Together they became one of those couples viewers simply assumed would continue building a future together. Which is why recent reports have sparked so much discussion. Because according to those reports, the relationship may have come to an end. A possibility that immediately raised questions among fans. Questions nobody outside the relationship can truly answer. Questions that inevitably emerge whenever a long-term romance appears to reach a crossroads. What happened? Why no? Was the decision mutual? Could there be more to the story? At this stage, certainty remains elusive. And perhaps that's exactly why the speculation continues. Because people naturally search for explanations when relationships change. They search for reasons. For clarity. For answers. Yet sometimes answers remain private. Sometimes the full story belongs only to the people involved. And perhaps that's how it should be. Still, the timing has prompted reflection. Reflection on just how much Rob has experienced throughout his journey. Professional success. Personal challenges. Public scrutiny. Private struggles. Moments of happiness. Moments of heartbreak. And through it all, the pressure of remaining in the public eye. It's easy to forget how demanding that can be. Viewers see characters. Storylines. Dramatic twists. But behind every character stands a real person navigating real experiences. And sometimes those experiences are far more complex than audiences realize. As fans continue watching Daniel Osbourne battle problems on screen, many may now find themselves looking at the actor behind the role a little differently. Not with sympathy. Not with pity. But with appreciation. Appreciation for resilience. For honesty. For continuing to perform despite challenges many people never see. Because perhaps the most remarkable part of this story isn't the condition. Or the relationships. Or the headlines. Perhaps it's the determination. The willingness to keep moving forward despite uncertainty. To keep working despite challenges. To keep embracing life despite knowing some obstacles may grow more difficult with time. That kind of resilience deserves recognition. Yet one mystery still remains. What happens next? What does the future hold? Will Daniel Osbourne continue dominating major Corey storylines? Will Rob's condition eventually become part of the character's journey? Will new opportunities emerge? Will new relationships follow? The truth is nobody knows. And perhaps that's what makes the story so powerful. Because life rarely follows a script. Surprises us. Challenges us. Changes us. And sometimes forces us to find strength we never knew we possessed. But if one thing is becoming clear, Rob Mallard's story is far from over. The next chapter hasn't been written. The next challenge hasn't arrived. The next opportunity hasn't revealed itself. And somewhere beyond the headlines, beyond the speculation, and beyond the uncertainty, a new chapter is waiting to begin. The only question is what happens when it finally does. Because sometimes the most powerful stories aren't the ones unfolding on Coronation Street. They're the ones happening behind the scenes. And this story may still have its biggest twist ahead.